Hello Reddit, HG Johnny here, bringing you another how to use video. This time we're going to be talking about Monk Gearbox 2.0. This is the second installment in the Gearbox. The first one came out probably about a week or two ago, and I made that basically in honor of the guys who were building sets back in the time. We had a lot of guys back then building a lot of good sets for not very much money, so this is kind of for them. The first one focused more on EHP. This one now has a DPS component in it, and we'll go over that in a second. Alright, so we're just going to go over this pretty quick. A lot of stuff you'll recognize, some you won't. First thing, the Paragon. You know, when you're building the sets, you want to have the right Paragon level set in. Specifically, if you're going to be giving that set away. You don't want to have something amped up or not as high as it should be because your Paragon level's off. Up here we have targeted values. So when I build a set, I have specific goals in mind, be it I want a CD or resistance 600 or mitigation to 91%. So I put those goals up here. Now I conditionally link those to the calculated sections over here. So basically, as I'm building the set, entering the data, and things are starting to happen, this calculated section starts getting populated. Well, if I have a cell that's shaded red, so in this case total reduction, that's a visual clue to me that, hey, I'm not meeting my targeted value, in this case, which would be 91, so it shades red. Now if that goes up to 91, that'll turn back to green, or if I take the mitigation down to something below the calculated value, it'll go back to green. So you kind of see how that works. Anyway, just kind of playing there. Alright, as we go around here, we'll talk about this new section here pretty soon. The buffs, STI and ODB, haven't changed. Your gem input and gear cost sections haven't changed. I have a lot more list menus now. This particular one is for the gem that goes into your helm. Alright, so it's a list menu. These are list menus. Now all the references for list menus are down here. So if you need to add or change or do anything like that, this is where I keep all that stuff. This is also where I keep all the calculations that you don't need to see, but that still must be required to populate the chart. So your dual wield, single wield, your average damage, main hand bonus ball, all down here. I'll hide that during release, but at least you know where it is. Okay, so the gear gems pretty much self-explanatory left from last time. We have the set bonuses included now. You know, simple yes no click, and it applies the values to the chart. This is another big new section right here, in that it allows you to swap between ruby and emerald to see what kind of change one will have over the other. So let's change a couple things here real quick. Main hand, no. Alright, so we're going to talk about, this is how I normally have it set up. And I say normally because this is what I'm using to try to complete that weekly challenge on the R Diablo sub. Alright, so here we see that I have my main hand as 160 min-max ruby. Alright, pretty self-explanatory. 160 gets added to the min and max damage. This min and max damage back here. This is the calculator, remember. Now, something to remember when you're considering using your ruby in a weapon, the biggest benefit you can get on top of the ruby value itself is if a weapon has a high % of damage associated with it, because that damage affects the overall value of that ruby. So in this case, that 160 min-max is actually, if we were to do the math, 160 times 1.48, so you're looking at probably 230 or whatever it is, min-max vice the standard 160. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping for weapons specifically to maybe run ruby in them, like your scorns or any other kind of two-handers like that. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the dual wield, single wield, and sword and board. Kind of a misnomer actually. I only have the ability to dual wield yes or dual wield no. Dual wield yes, pretty self-explanatory. It allows the data from my offhand weapon to come in and be calculated, as well as any kind of thing associated with my offhand weapon, my offhand emerald, that kind of thing. Now what it does is I have a ton of if statements basically throughout this sheet, and the if statements control what comes in based on the position of this toggle switch. So for dual wield, I have if statements on my offhand. So if T6, which is over here, equals N, then 0. Otherwise, gear from Echo 63. Now in this case I don't have a strength on that offhand weapon, so that's a bad example. Over here, crit damage now. You can see that because I have yes here, it's allowing that 96% value to come in from here. Okay, pretty cool. Now if I switch that to no, watch what happens. It goes away, right? Because it says, hey, if it equals no, then put 0 there. Now conversely, going to no allows my shield information to be populated and utilized because it has a different statement. It says if T6 equals Y, no. But if it equals no, yep, bring in the data from the gear sheet. So that's kind of how I control what comes in and what comes not based on your dual wield status. So you can apply that to sword and board. You can apply that to two-hand build. You know, if you're something more like a Tempest Rush setup. So yeah, the sword and board inclusion is basically based on user feedback from Slack. He said, hey man, I got nothing over here that shows me any love for sword and board monk. So this is kind of my attempt at doing that. Now one of the things that are associated with the sword and board is your overall EHP with block. Now to be honest with you, I had never used sword and board, so I had to give Aaron a holler over D3 Up, and it's like, hey man, how do you calculate that? So basically what happens is they assume an incoming hit of 70,000. Okay, so the hit comes in, or you're getting swung at for 70,000 damage. The first thing that happens is that your armor and all resist mitigation whittle down the damage. So this value right here takes away the damage. What's left over then is next comes into the block damage. So the block whittles it down about 1,200 more points. And what you're left over with total is 4268. That is how much you feel. That's how much your health globe goes down for that particular hit. Alright, so that value then is multiplied by the amount of block you have. So in this case I have 22%. So I take this number times 22 equals that number. That number is then added to my calculated EHP and displayed here as overall EHP with block. I guess that's cool. I would never use that. I would always assume worst case scenario and stuff that's always constant. You know, things like reduced damage from melee or reduced damage from range will affect your HP, but they're situational. So I think they're kind of garbage, to be honest with you. So if you're trying to come up with an HP value to work from, use this one. It's pretty constant. Alright, so that's pretty much the front sheet. I think we covered that. Let's take a look at the back sheet real quick. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, this is where the magic is. All the data that populates the front sheet comes from back here. Pretty standard fare left over from the first one, right? Here's your actual item. Here's the values associated with it. Now, it doesn't have all the possible values, but it has the values that affect EHP and DPS, so that's kind of what I focused on. Also, you're going to notice that my listing isn't commensurate with the same listing as D3 Up uses. Sorry, that's just how this is how I buy pieces in the order I buy them. So that's where it comes from. Alright, so you come down here a little bit. Here's that main hand and offhand input section I told you about. So take it directly off the weapon. So base APS 1.4. Hey, I'm a sword. Hey, I'm a fist weapon. It's going to be 1.4. If that was a dagger, it'd be 1.5. If it was a mace, it would be something altogether different. So keep that in mind. Your task speed bonus, your plus attacks per second, like seen on the Echoing Furies. Here's that plus % damage thing I was talking about. You can see that if you didn't put that in, it would skew your calculations quite a bit, especially if you're using a ruby. Alright, here's your ammo section. Here's your shield section. Now, having never used a shield, I'm assuming I have everything I need for the HP DPS variant, but I can't be 100% sure. So, what else about this? Oh yeah. Now, in the Monk Toolbox, the min and max sections have the ability to account for what you sometimes see on jewelry, the plus min damage, a hidden min damage, if you will. So how this works is you'll come back here, you'll say, okay, I got my min max values for jewelry. Let's say it's, I don't know, 20 for min, and 30 for or 40 for max. So logically, that would be 20 plus 40 divided by 2, 30 would be your average. Now, if your piece of jewelry happens to have a hidden min on it, let's just say in this case it's 30, right? That's going to change your average. Basically what happens is if the sum of your two min values is greater than your max value, then that sum becomes your average damage. So in this case, that average damage would be 50. You have to look at D3 up for that because it won't show you that hidden min in the game. You'll notice that your average damage isn't what it should be, but it won't specifically show you the hidden min. So if after you put in all your stuff here, you can't get your numbers to jive, then that is probably what's going on. You have a hidden min on jewelry that you need to account for. Alright, let's go back to dashboard, see if there's anything we're missing here. I think that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoy this tool. I had a lot of fun making it. I always learn something as I go through here. I think that's maybe what keeps me going in this game. But anyway, the toolbox is now, or correction, the Gearbox is now available for you guys to use. Hopefully someday someone smarter than me comes up with the single-click version like we had for the toolbox that auto-populates this stuff. Admittedly, doing this stuff by hand is kind of cumbersome, but it's just how it is for right now. If you guys want to take the challenge and make something that auto-populates this, maybe based off of the JSON data that D3Up gives you, right on, give it a shot, share it with the group. I'm sure everyone would be happy to have something that's more user-friendly. So this sheet will be protected, okay, once I release it, so you won't be able to mess around with the cells. If you want to, of course, you just take off the protection. You can go down here and expand these hidden cells and look more into how the math works, if you will. But for the general purpose user, you probably won't need to use that. Alright guys, I'm going to post this up here pretty soon, so if you have any questions pertaining to it, be sure to ask. Later.